Welcome to Pokemon from Scratch, a sealed only challenge where with a budget of $30 a week, we will attempt to build a competitive deck using only the cards we obtain from buying sealed products. And the rules are simple, no trading and no buying singles allowed. Our goal is to ultimately qualify for the Pokemon World Championships using only these cards. Make sure you subscribe to keep up to date with this challenging competitive journey. Now let's get started. Hello guys, and welcome back to another episode of Pokemon from Scratch. So what is the excuse of this week? Glad you asked. It just took forever to find this tin that we're opening up for today's episode and then waiting for it to ship. Also, I plan on adding more content to the channel to help fill in the void of this so-called channel, so I was wondering if there's anything in particular you guys wanted to see. Anyways, as you guys are pondering that, let's get started with today's opening. And here we go, a Lucario Melmetal tin. But why, you ask, when we have ADP? Well, I like to have an alternative win con when we're too slow in setting up ADP. Melmetal provides this through energy removal and a continuous damage reduction. It's a nice tech card and it even has its own deck variant, so regardless if we cut it in the future or not, it would be nice to have in our inventory. So opening up our tin, we see our nice alternate art promo. I really enjoy the artwork on these alternate arts compared to the original. After that, we got our Melmetal-GX counter and our 4 packs. I thought for sure we were going to get Team Up or Unified Mind packs, but here we are with 3 rotated packs instead. Oh well. So starting off with our only standard pack, we got a Cosmic Gas Cloud, a Pony, a Crab, a Piranha, Chinchou, oh nice, and a secret rare Mimikyu. The artwork is really pretty, so even though it's kinda useless, it's a nice binder card. Onto our rotated sets. For Lost Thunder, we have a Phanpy, Wurmple, Marini, Yamask, Stunfisk, a Reverse Hollow Seal, and for a rare, Hand Unknown. Fun fact, this card was a filthy win condition for control decks back in the day, stating that you win the game if you have a total of 35 cards in your hand. For Lost Thunder, we got a Voltorb, Slugma, Circuit, Sneasel, Shuppet, another Voltorb, and a Medicham as a rare, and not much else. Onto evolutions, hoping for that Charizard, we have a Charmander to start for good luck, Diglett, Ghastly, Caterpie, Drowsy, Machop, and whoa, a full art Dragonite EX. Just look at all that gold. Since this is a hit from a rotated set, its value will be added to our budget for next week. So pulling out our deck, we're only going to add Melmetal into the deck for this week. We're going to take out the extra energy spinner we put in last week for it since it was just a place filler. And with that, here's an overall preview of our deck, so let's get into some games. Game 1, we win the coin flip and we get to go first. Our opening hand looks pretty dreadful though, so we have no choice but to start Jirachi and prey on our Stellar Wish. Our opponent doesn't seem to be faring that well either, as he just attach and passes to us. Our top deck doesn't help our situation, but Stellar Wish gets us into a research, so now we can hopefully start going. Our new hand is pretty good since we can get our Zacian from it, and we have a Dedenne in hand to continue powering through our deck. We need a Metal Saucer and an Energy in order for us to get off the auto creation as well as a switching card. Dedenne will need to hit all 3 in 6 cards, so the odds aren't in our favor. Normally, I wouldn't go for it since I don't want to discard our boss's order, but I YOLO'd for the fun of it, and behold, a pretty meh hand. So, we'll just sadly Intrepid Sword and pass. On our opponent's turn, luckily for me, he whiffs the Crushing Hammer, so we get to keep our water energy. They then proceed to bring out Mew before using Marnie and just charging up their Mewtwo on bench. So here, I preemptively bench our Zigzagoon to set up Mew for a future knockout and then be available for future Scoop Up Nets that we drop. Then, I thin out the deck by grabbing both of our remaining Zacians. our Marnie brings us to a pretty good hand but no Metal Energy, so we have to pray on Stellar Wish for our spinners or Viridian. Luckily for us, we hit Viridian Forest so we can get our Metal Energy. I made a mistake here by discarding my last Water Energy, so I should have scooped up first and then discarded Jirachi instead. Mistakes were made, but regardless, we fired off our altered creation. There is an argument of just knocking out the Bolton with Zacian, however, that would mean I need to two-shot all of our opponent's tag teams for the remainder of the game, and I only have 2 more Metal Energies left in deck, so it's just safer to just alter creation so we can threaten the one-shot on Mew Mew and Bolton for game. Our opponent gets his Raichu before hitting us with the good old Marnie. Our new hand is alright, but our opponent flips heads on Crushing Hammer to remove our last Water Energy, making our ADP pretty useless now, before smacking us for 160 with Volt Storm. On our turn, I attach Balloon to ADP and then boss up the Mew Mew. Here I want to Energy Switch the Metal Energy on ADP to Zacian. We can attach another Energy at any time to ADP with Viridian Forest if we need to manually retreat. If we get the switch, we can just attach the energy to our other Zacian. Leaving the energy on the ADP doesn't serve any purpose as we can't attack with ADP anymore, so doing that, we then Dedenne into an insane hand. We switch into our Zacian and then fully charge up the other bench Zacian. I was considering thinning out the deck even more with Viridian Forest, but then our opponent just hits the concede button and then we take the game. Game 2, we lost the coin flip and we have to go first. Unfortunately, our hand is absolutely awful, so I grab a Metal Energy with Spinner and attach and just pass. We attach a Metal Energy in case of Crushing Hammer, and that also helps us activate our saucers if it were to be discarded. On our opponent's turn, we see yet another Pika-Rom deck. They grab the Doggos and then attach to it before researching. Getting the switch, they bring up the Bolton and then charge up their Mew Mew. Going back to us, our hand is absolutely terrible, so we just attach and then research. Thankfully, this new hand is much better, so we go ahead and bench our 2 Pokemons. But looking at our hand, this hand is pretty good for knocking out the Dennes if our opponents were to bench one next turn, so we won't overextend and just alter creation. I should have Primitive Wisdom prior to attacking, but I forgot, so oh well. On our opponent's turn, we see the Tapu Koko come down as well as a Pika-Rom before our hand gets hit with a Marnie. They get the Crushing Hammer on top of that and flips heads, so we're really in the backseat now since our hand isn't all that great and getting an attack off with ADP is pretty difficult now. They hit us for a 130 and pass it back to us. We unfortunately top deck another Metal Saucer with no Metal Energies in the discard. We whiff the Turbo Patch and then Primitive Wisdom our Saucer back into the deck for future use. I don't need to draw right now, so I Wisdom first and then Quick Ball so the Saucer is no longer on the top of my deck after the deck shuffle from using Quick Ball. Afterwards, we just bench our Pokemons and then Dedenne. Looking at our new hand, it's pretty unplayable. I don't think we can attack with ADP this turn, so I end up just attaching to Zacian before using Marnie. Thankfully, we get a switch, so we keep our energy on ADP and move Zigzagoon to the active position to be a meat shield. Then we just Intrepid Sword and pass. On my opponent's turn, they finally use Dedenne, seeing that ADP is no longer a threat. With a new hand, they flip another heads on Crushing Hammer, boss up our ADP and electrocute it into the discard. Now, things may be looking pretty bad for us, but it's not over yet. We promote our Zacian with an energy to the active since we have Energy Switch in hand to move our energies around. Then we charge up our Zacian, Scoop Up Net for fun, and then play our research. With our hand, I Primitive Wisdom back our boss's order so we can use it for later, and then burn our Viridian Forest since it's basically unplayable. I made another mistake here for not benching Jirachi before attacking since it will be crucial for our endgame since our second Zacian is not powered up yet. On our opponent's turn, they set up their Mew Mew with Dance of the Ancient and then an attachment before using the Dedenne. They get their Raichu stamp and a Yell Grunt to boot before knocking us out with Lightning Ride GX. Luckily for us, they should have used Yell Grunt first before reset stamping, however that doesn't really improve our situation. Our hand is basically unplayable, so we boss up the Pika-Rom to buy us some time and just Intrepid Sword. And of course, our opponent starts his turn off with another Crushing Hammer, and of course he gets another heads for the 3rd time this game, so that sets us back a lot. He Marnies but doesn't seem to have gotten the switch, so we buy ourselves another turn. We retreat into Jirachi and then Stellar Wish. We need to hit either a boss's order or our last Metal Saucer to win the game this turn. We didn't hit either one, but it's potentially my fault for not thinning out the deck first with Quick Ball and Spinner. So we just grab an Energy Switch here to discard and then proceed to Spinner and then grab our Dedenne. I decide to Primitive Wisdom here and we get a boss's order from it. I decide to go ahead and use it preemptively and pray we get the Metal Saucer for game because I don't think we're gonna live another turn. I know he has energies left, so it doesn't really matter what I bring up. Using Dedenne, our new hand is quite disastrous as we didn't get the Metal Saucer, so we just end up using Great Catcher to bring up the Pika-ROM and pray we can stall for another turn. That being said, it would just be an Intrepid Sword and pass. Our opponent thins out their deck with Radar before hitting us with a Reset Stamp and then boxing up our Oranguru to prevent a Stellar Wish before passing. This is amazing because that means we get another turn to play. So back to us, our hand is pretty dead, so I thin the deck out first with Quick Ball before using Primitive Wisdom. We get the Metal Energy, but with no boss's orders in hand, it'll be impossible for us to win the game this turn, so we'll just switch into Jirachi to Stellar Wish, grab our boss's order preemptively, and just Intrepid Sword and just pray our opponent whiffs again. On our opponent's turn, they just attach and Marnie to hopefully slow us down. Since they didn't play a switch here, it is clear to us that they don't play more than 2 switches or that the third one is prized. That means they have to triple attach to their Pika-ROM in order to win. Unfortunately for them, our deck is so small that we end up drawing back to our winning cards, so we just boss up the dog, switch, and then win the game. Game 3, we win the coin flip and we get to go second. Our opponent opens up with a Volcanion, but shows a Mew Mew and reveals that they're playing the fire variant of the deck powered by Welder. They switch into Mew Mew, scoop up the Volcanion to free their bench, and then Dedenne. They ping our ADP for 10 damage before passing it back to us. Our hand is absolutely amazing since we have the turn 1 Alter Creation, however we are lacking a supporter. So we start out with a spinner to grab our energies, discard a metal using the opponent's Furnace, attach to ADP, Saucer to Zacian, E-switch to ADP, then Primitive Wisdom to hopefully get a supporter or a Quick Ball. We didn't get either one, so we'll just Alter Creation here and then hand it to our opponent. On our opponent's turn, they attach to deactive before emptying their hand for their Crobat. They then switch into Jirachi, Stellar Wish for their Welder, and then smacking us for a fat 230 damage with Flare Strike. Back to us, I switch into Jirachi knowing I have a Scoop Up Net, so I hopefully Stellar Wish into a supporter. Here I choose the Quick Ball over the Marnie because I want to be extremely greedy and get a boss's order from a Dedenne to knock out our opponent's Dedenne with ADP. So grabbing our Dedenne, it gives us a new hand of 6 equally useless cards. Thankfully, we get a switch through it despite the lack of supporters. We Primitive Wisdom hoping to get a supporter, but my deck is being quite stubborn today, so we'll just end our turn by smacking their Mew Mew back for 180 and setting up our bench station. Our opponent switches to the Jirachi to Stellar Wish, but doesn't do anything else besides passing. I feel as if they should have just taken the knockout with the Mew Mew on our ADP, but I'm not really sure what they were thinking. On our turn, we finally top deck a draw supporter, but I wanted to be really greedy here and punish our opponent by getting a boss's order on their damaged Mew Mew. Primitive Wisdom heard our wishes and gets us a Dedenne-GX, so we draw a new hand of 6 and Lord behold, another new hand with no supporters. At this point, I'm crying a little bit inside from all the neglection that my supporter cards are giving me. So with nothing really much else to do, we just take the knockout on Jirachi and pass it over. My opponent brings up the Mew and quickly knocks out our ADP, but not getting rid of my hand was a grave mistake. We have game with boss's order in our hand since we can just knock out the damaged Mewtwo and take 4 prizes. But I wanted to send a message that even Pokemon with 270 HP aren't safe from Zacian, so I benched the Zigzagoon for that sweet 10 damage, Oranguru for no reason, Marnie for no reason, Spinner for no reason, and then finally take the knockout. So we went 3-0 this week, making it the 3rd week in a row that we have a positive record with ADP Zacian. From our games, it seems that ADP was just the optimal plan for many of those games. We might test it for another week before deciding whether or not we'll keep Lucario, but regardless, I don't regret spending this week's budget on Lucario. Our budget is pretty big for next week thanks to the Dragonite EX that we pulled, so look forward to next week and see what we can add to our deck. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next episode. Bye!